Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. And everyone, welcome into the program. I hope that you are doing well and you have everything in order for the holidays. It is a hectic time of year. And of course, you know, for my family here, we just sent off all of our presents like a day or two ago. And you know what's more fun than the post office? Like 4 or 5 days before Christmas, there's really not much out there. There's really not much out there that's as fun as that. So to all of the postal workers, to all of the people working out there to get presents to everyone, Santa included, I of course say thank you. So everyone, good luck with the holidays. Now, with that being said, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future show notes, articles, really anything that we do here on the program, you can find at computeramerica.com. You can check us out there, and you can, of course, check out all of our, all of our different shows. And of course, we have our shows with, such as today, with Ralph Bond. Now, computeramerica.com is especially important on our shows with Ralph because he puts together some amazing show notes that if you would like to follow along, if you'd like to check it out, read the stories or just dive more in depth, because Ralph does a great job of highlighting the stories, but hey, we only have time for the highlights. So with that being said, go there, find the links, find everything. If you're driving, if you're busy, don't worry, everything is going to be right there on our site. So with that being said, as I said, Ralph Bond will be joining us here. He is our science and tech trends correspondent, and he'll be discussing 4 different amazing stories. Everything from a battery that could last, well, let's face it, thousands of years, and hey, might not be in your car or your cell phone anytime soon, but it's still amazing stuff. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about, new kinds of scanners for stroke patients. Craig, are you listening? It's going to be all really cool and amazing stuff. So everyone, computeramerica.com, one last time, go ahead, check it out. So let's go ahead and bring Ralph on and talk about the amazing stories that he has found. So Ralph, welcome back onto the program. How you been?
I'm doing great. And hey, it's great to salute all the postal workers and the Amazon delivery people and the UPS. All these people are out there just going crazy right now. In Hillsboro, Oregon, just outside of Portland, where I'm based, we have a gigantic, huge Amazon warehouse and delivery system. And it's like this network of all those Rivian electric delivery trucks going around. They might as well just keep doing a circuit around and around and around our neighborhoods, just delivering day and night. So salute to all those people and hope they have a restful holiday next week.
True. So yeah, and really what they do, logistically speaking, they're saying that, like, obviously these companies are tech companies. We talk about them often, but really they're a logistic company. Like, logistics is the real end game for all these companies. So good luck with them. So, but Ralph, we are not here to talk about logistics. We're here to talk about science and technology. So for the for the new folks, give them the rundown for what we try to do here.
Yeah, if you're new to the show, welcome on board. What Ben and I do each Friday is highlight 4 recent articles that show us key trends and developments in everything: artificial intelligence, robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, agricultural tech, space research, physics, you name it, all across the board. But most important of all, we're going to give you an oasis of positive news thanks to the world of science and technology. We're going to leave you feeling better about the world and where we're headed.
Absolutely. And really, there is a lot to look forward to. We'll talk about the honorable mentions later, but hey, we have 4 different stories to talk about, and we start with story number 1, and it's that battery I was talking about. Rob, like, sometimes we have talked about on the show about, like, storage or memory
Yeah.
in computers being, etched in diamonds and etched in glass, and it'll last forever. We've seen being able to imprint data onto, diamonds and glass, and then be able to read the data. But that's, data is one thing. It's almost like a book. But energy, that's something that you need to store, release. Like, that's a much more complicated thing. And I've never heard of being able to, kind of do that with diamonds. So this is really cool.
This is a really fun story. This comes from the University of Bristol in the United Kingdom from their news release. And the headline here is scientists, and engineers produce world's first carbon-14 diamond battery with potential lifespan of thousands of years. Okay. Sometimes I wonder, Ben, something like this is so significant. Why isn't it on our mainstream every night TV channel outlets, major networks? But nonetheless, you're going to get it from us. And so let's get into this story. I just love this one. Researchers from the University of Bristol and the United Kingdom Atomic Energy Authority have created the world's first carbon-14 diamond battery with a shockingly long lifespan. The battery, described in a December 4 statement, so it's just earlier this month, by the University of Bristol, could power devices for thousands of years by harnessing the decay of carbon-14, a radioactive isotope commonly used to date organic artifacts. So if carbon-14 dating sounds familiar from archaeology and all that kind of stuff, that's what we're talking about. They're taking advantage of that same fundamental principle. So this innovative design could supply more environmentally friendly long-term power to devices everywhere, from inside the body to hundreds of light years away from Earth. That's a reference to spacecraft. Oh, this is amazing. And get a load of how this works. The carbon-14 diamond battery works by using the radioactive decay of carbon-14, which has a half-life of 5,700 years. And they are taking advantage of this to generate low levels of power. So I want to stress this, low levels of power. We're talking about microwatts. So we're not talking about putting diamonds in your car someday and it's going to allow you to drive down the street. No, that's not what we're probably not going to be talking about. Still very significant.
Yeah, probably not silicon diamond batteries or anytime soon. So.
Yeah, right. And it functions, and what I thought was very interesting, the author of the article makes this comparison. It functions somewhat like solar panels, which convert light into electricity, but instead of using light particles or photons, they capture fast-moving electrons from within the diamond structure. Now, folks, there's so much more going on in this technology than what we're going to give you in this highlight this morning. So be sure to come out to the computeramerica.com, get the show notes, because we'll have links where you can go and dive much deeper into this. We're just giving you the highlights. Still pretty exciting stuff. One of the lead researchers noted, quote, diamond batteries offer a safe, sustainable way to provide continuous microwatt levels of power. They are an emerging technology that use a manufactured diamond to safely encase small amounts of carbon-14. Ben, it's just, the possibilities here just blow my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about possibilities, several game-changing applications are possible. For example, biocompatible diamond batteries can be used in medical devices such as ocular implants, hearing aids, and pacemakers, minimizing the need for replacements and distress to patients. Wow, think about ocular implants, hearing aids, pacemakers. Imagine having a battery that could last for thousands of years with enough power to run those kind of devices.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you still have to replace them just every 5,700 years. So, after 5,700 years of your pacemaker, you may have to go in for a change. But at that point, your battery is like the most stable part of the device. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. If you let this all sink in, it's really pretty profound. So diamond batteries could also be used in extreme environments, both in space and on Earth, where it's not practical to replace conventional batteries. Now, qualifier again, we're talking about microwatts, so it depends on what kind of devices you're trying to run. But here's a great example. For example, the batteries could power active radio frequency tags, RF tags, where there is a need to identify and track devices either on Earth or in space, such as a spacecraft or payloads for decades at a time, thus reducing costs and extending operational lifespans. So hooray for our friends in the UK for pulling this off. What an amazing thing. And let's see where this goes.
Yeah, for sure. It may be super small, but if you can, have this going and, have, like a satellite up in space or something like that, and this can last for hundreds or thousands of years. Hey, maybe your device goes from a 10-year life cycle to a 30, 40, 50, because something else is probably going to break, but it won't be your battery.
But not the battery.
Yeah, it won't be the battery. Very, very cool stuff. And again, just the idea of using carbon dating, I think a lot of people are at least familiar with the term, but to turn that and say, hey, this is a source of energy, very innovative and new. So living up to its science and technology title, that's what Ralph just did there. So story number one. Story number two, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about materials. And, Ralph, I've noticed that, because you're a science and tech trends correspondent, a trend in technology, Ralph, like there's better batteries, all that good stuff. But like what it comes down to is material sciences. It's a really broad field, affects almost everything that we do. And it's probably where the next big breakthrough is going to come, is just finding out that new material, because we're very good at the materials that we use, but using new materials in new ways, that's what's going to give us the big breakthroughs. And hey, maybe story number two is that.
Yeah. Story number two is really great. And it's a little more nuts and bolts. It's all about recycling aluminum. But let's get into this. This comes from techexplorer.com. And the headline here is From Scrap to Strength. Subhead, solid phase manufacturing transforms aluminum waste into high value alloys. I go to the Costco locally where I live. And outside of the Costco, they have those recycling machines, bins where people, giant bags of soda pop cans and beer cans, and they're feeding those things in there and so forth. And as a consumer, I kind of go, yeah, okay, they go off someplace, and I know they get recycled somehow, but how? So this article is really great to tell you about traditional recycling and then this great innovation we're going to talk about. So here we go. Let's get into this story. If you have the show notes, by the way, if you're watching, you can see a wonderful chart in the article we're going to talk about the issue of aluminum recycling. But first, a little side note that I injected. Aluminum is a sustainable material because it can be recycled almost indefinitely without losing its properties. And here's a factoid that I picked up, not in the article, this is something I added. In fact, 75% of all aluminum ever produced is still in use today. What?
I had no idea.
Isn't that's just phenomenal when you think about it. It's a real testament to the recyclability of aluminum. But as an illustration in the as an illustration in the article notes, and that's where the show notes are important, folks, because it's a great little chart that Ben is showing you now. Traditional recycling of aluminum involves 5 key steps, including, and this is very important for this story, including melting the scrap metal pieces. All right, with all of that setup said, and as you're looking at the chart that Ben is showing you, here's the big news. Researchers at the Department of Energy's Pacific Northwest National Laboratories in the state of Washington have developed technology making it possible for aluminum metal scrap to be directly transformed and upgraded into high-performance, high-value alloys, here's the key, without the need for conventional melting processes. Without the need for the melting. The research demonstrates that scrap aluminum from industrial waste streams can produce high-performance metal alloys, as we mentioned before. And by converting waste into high-performance aluminum products, the new method called solid phase alloying not only enhances material properties, but also contributes to environmental sustainability. Ben, this is just really, again, if you're looking at that chart where we're talking about is super streamlining the process, as the illustration greatly shows, it shows the 5 steps up above that normally have to happen, tedious steps, costly steps, time-consuming steps, And what the folks at this research institute have done is come up with something that super simplifies it.
Yep.
And then this innovative solid phase alloying process converts aluminum scrap blended with copper, zinc, and magnesium into a precisely designed high-strength aluminum alloy product in a matter of minutes. Again, look at that chart. Traditional versus this is a matter of minutes compared to the days required to produce the same product utilizing conventional melting, casting, and extrusion. Wow. The research team used a Pacific Northwest National Laboratory patented technique called shear assisted processing and extrusion, and of course it has an acronym SHAPE, to achieve their results. However, the researchers noted that the findings should be reproducible with other solid phase manufacturing processes. And with the shear assisted processing and extrusion process, high-speed rotating die create friction and heat that disperses the chunky starting ingredients, meaning chunky bits of scrap aluminum, into a uniform alloy with the same characteristics as a newly manufactured aluminum wrought product. So, going on, it says here, the solid phase approach eliminates the need for energy-intensive bulk melting, as we alluded to earlier, which combined with the low-cost feedstocks originating from scrap, has the potential to sharply reduce the cost of manufacturing these materials. In other words, the cost and time to recycle aluminum. Now, bottom line, what does this mean for you and me, Ben, normal human beings? For consumers, this means recycled aluminum products will have a longer lifespan and better performance at a lower cost, whether they are part of a vehicle, a construction material, or a household appliance. Hooray for these folks in the Northwest. And by the way, folks, if you want to find out about what I call the MIT of the Northwest of our country, learn about the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. These people are absolutely amazing, and their research spans, just like MIT, an incredible spectrum of everything in science that impacts our lives. So salute to those folks.
And you know, I always like it when there's new research going into what we consider very, very basic things, because don't get me wrong, like, you know, quantum computer and, you know, all this other stuff, like, it's all cool. It needs to be done, but at the same time, like, the very base necessities, like just recycling, you know, still need to be figured out or figured out better. And they really, really cool stuff. And, you know, the video that we showed a little bit showed the extrusion and, you know, the rod coming out and stuff like it's, if they can figure that out, it really does mean just, you know, easier, cheaper, better products that are recyclable, which is, you know, a huge part of sustainability. So very, very cool stuff there. Story number 2. Story number 3, we're going to go ahead and jump on over and talk about, you know, looks like some energy that's being stored in the ground. And, Ralph, like, and you know, the U.S., and not to get too far into politics, but a big drumbeat in the U.S. ever since really, you know, kind of probably before 9/11, but that's really when my brain kind of turned on. But, you know, is energy independence, the ability that the U.S. be able to power itself and export energy and all that good stuff, you know, to itself and others. It's important, you know, it's a security issue. It's just a fundamental issue of how do we keep the lights on. And story number 3 might have an answer for maybe just the next couple of thousand years, you know, just give or take.
Yeah, it's sort of like the battery that can run for 1,000 years. This is a potential energy source that the scientists think could be useful for thousands of years. So let's set the stage here. This story comes from an outlet called The Cool Down, and you find it on MSN online. Headline, U.S. scientists probe potentially massive energy source buried deep underground, subhead, and it has potential to power the Earth, the globe, for thousands of years. This is really interesting. In fact, the past week or so, I've just seen this story getting more and more and more traction in all of the scientific outlets and news outlets and so on. Once again, Ben, a profoundly significant story that I didn't hear on NBC or MSNBC or ABC or CBS Nightly News. It's still just, well, I'm just into this stuff so much that I can't understand how people aren't into it as well.
Well, I'm sure anyone out there listening is also into it because, hey, they're listening to this. But
that's right.
You only have so many. Yeah, you only have so many
really cool.
things in the news
cycle. University of Nebraska experts think that a continent-shaking event from more than 1 billion years ago, that's billion with a B, may still be reverberating with impact today in the form of cleaner hydrogen fuel. Stay with me, folks. This is all going to make sense in a moment. Get a load of this. Some 1.1 billion years ago, the North American continent nearly split in two, leaving behind a 1,200-mile swath of volcanic rocks known as the Mid-Continent Rift that may be able to produce enough natural hydrogen to yield vast amounts of clean energy. We've talked over the last several years been so much about hydrogen this, hydrogen that. Now we're talking about a tremendous amount of hydrogen in the earth produced naturally that we might be able to access. So the research detailed in a University of Nebraska press release examines the possibility that the 1,200-mile mid-continent rift could hold thousands of years of worth of energy up to 5,000 feet underground. Now, as the team's press release noted, quote, it could be deep enough to be stored, but shallow enough to access it. The geology is in our favor. So once again, when they talk about stored, they don't mean to say hydrogen we're producing on the surface and then storing down below, which is another thing many researchers are looking at doing. We're talking about hydrogen that's down there now, produced naturally. And this is just a fascinating, Ben, we're going to learn about how this is happening. It just blows my mind. The rift in question stretches from Lake Superior through parts of 6 states, going as far south as Kansas. And in the show notes, we have a little map there showing you where this is. It was formed when the North American continent nearly split, as we mentioned before. A large swath of volcanic rock remains. The scientists are exploring whether water interacting with the rock is creating natural hydrogen. So it's the water interacting with the rock is creating natural hydrogen. It's fascinating chemistry that happens when certain rocks contact water, creating a reaction that leaves hydrogen as a byproduct. Who knew? I didn't. So the idea that these guys are looking for it, can we access this? Can we cost effectively extract it and then put it to use on Earth as a fuel that only has the exhaust of water vapor? Wow, another really interesting twist in the ongoing story about hydrogen.
Yeah, I am definitely curious if something like this is like, oil companies have put a lot of time, energy, and effort into the technology of oil drilling. Ralph, I'm curious if like you use something like that, oil drilling, but instead of for oil drilling, you dig a mile deep hole into the earth, maybe pump some water onto the rocks and then find a way to siphon off the gas. And you don't take the rocks out or anything like that, but you just, pump in water and pump out hydrogen. Something like that maybe would be, I'm thinking what they're kind of hoping for. And all of this would be essentially your oil field is the image that we see up on the screen where that's the mid-continent rift. I don't know. It's so curious, but also we've seen the steady trend that hydrogen is a viable, or at least a part of the viable, energy means that we're going to need in the near future here. So any source of that, very important.
Really interesting twist on the saga of hydrogen.
and even better that it's in the United States because, hey, it's real close to home. Ralph, it's almost like finding thousands of years of quarters in your sofa. Like it's just so close to home. It's untapped. It's good stuff. So there you go.
Funny.
And all we had to do was give up Kentucky, and that's okay. No, I'm joking. Okay, so story number 3. Story number 4. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and talk about this. I mentioned at the outset, stroke is the problem. Strokes are a problem. Strokes are a big problem. And the immediacy of treatment when it comes to strokes is really the biggest deal. And knowing, and Ralph, like I've experienced this firsthand, is like when you first go in with a stroke, you have to think, the doctors have to make such quick calls that can make such big impacts on people's lives because it's like, Is it a stroke that you use blood thinners on and, hopefully it breaks it up and, helps your stroke? Or is it a stroke that you're bleeding and blood thinners would cause more bleeding and then you die? Like, it's either, one way or the other. They have to find out very quick and, hey, big consequences either way. So story number 4 might have some promise for hopefully the treatment, I'm thinking, of strokes.
Yeah. No, and long-term listeners and viewers know that we typically end each Friday segment with a story that comes from the world of medical and science technology advancements, and this fits that bill. This comes from an outfit called medicalexpress.com. Wonderful website. Headline, new type of medical scanner shows promise for stroke patients, as Ben was alluding to. So let's get into this story. A new type of medical scanner developed by a University of Aberdeen team in Scotland has shown that it can identify brain damage in stroke patients at lower magnetic fields than ever before. And you're going to understand in a bit here why this bit about lower magnetic fields than ever before is so important. And I'll inject a little comment from me. As we'll learn in this article, the key, as I just said, is lower magnetic fields, which opens up new and exciting possibilities that even go beyond examining stroke patients. So this is the world's first field cycling imager. That's the term the scientists have come up with, and derives its fundamental technology from magnetic resonance imaging, good old MRI, but is able to work at ultra-low magnetic fields, which makes it capable of seeing how organs are affected by diseases in previously unseen ways. But wait, there's more. Because it is safer than current scanners, thanks to the use of ultra-low magnetic fields, the new field cycling imager technology also opens exciting possibilities for the development of systems, get ready for this, tailored for ambulances and other out-of-hospital settings. Okay. I've experienced MRI a number of times in my life. It's just wonderful. And it's always in a hospital situation, and people are being very careful, and you go through the machine and all this sort of stuff, gigantic equipment. We're talking about, and part of the reason is because it's very high magnetic field technology involved. They're talking about a breakthrough where they can get great images at very low magnetic fields, which opens up the possibility for portable ambulances, out of hospital settings, and so forth. So that's the significance of what we're talking about here.
Maybe if you assume that something is happening with a stroke, you can send out the stroke ambulance, and it would be like a MRI on wheels, and it would be life saving. It'd be crazy.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. An MRI on wheels is a good way of looking at it. So again, a little bit of tutorial in the article. It says traditional magnetic resonance imaging, again, MRIs, use strong magnetic fields and radio waves to produce detailed images of the inside of the body without touching it. The field cycling imager scanner is based on the same principles, but its design is completely revisited so that it can vary the strength of magnetic field during the patient's scan. This includes going down to magnetic fields of less than a typical, and I should have inserted home refrigerator magnet, while obtaining good quality pictures. So much more going on in the article. Please come out to computeramerica.com, get the show notes, and learn more about this if you're interested. But this is a very important potential breakthrough that could enable medical researchers, or more important, rescue teams or medics or whatever out in the field, to be able to do these scans safely because of this lower magnetic field technology that still yields great images of the inside of the human body. So good stuff.
It's almost like the breakthrough that we've seen over the last couple of years with sonograms, for seeing babies and stuff like that. Like before, that was also a hospital thing where you had this big machine in the hospital, you come in, you had a little wand, and you kind of, do it. And now they're almost handheld. Like they can transmit the data to any computer and they're handheld, and you can go to people and, get these images without having to bring them into a hospital. And hopefully something like that is in MRI's future.
Yeah.
So Very, very cool. And, also the fact that, well, let's see, there's some things that you need metal implanted into the body and they just are never allowed to get MRIs again. Hey, maybe point. They can get MRIs because it's much lower fields. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Possibilities.
Maybe. That's a good point.
Yeah, a lot of possibilities. So very, very cool. Always love the medical spin on technology. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're following along in the show notes, that was story number 4. But you may notice there is some weird Terminator-looking hand there. Well, that is our honorable mention. That's our first honorable mention. And these are stories that are just as good. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there and you're a researcher and you just made the honorable mentions, it's okay. It's good stuff. We just don't have the time. So, Ralph, let's at least read the nice folks the headlines. And if they like to find more, come out to computeramerica.com and we will have links to all of these stories and you can find out. But these are all still super cool stories and we should at least tease you with them.
Yes, this one is great from the field of robotics. And there's an outfit called Sanctuary AI. That's the name of the company. And the headline here is Sanctuary AI Dexterous Robot Hands Featuring 21 Degrees of Freedom. You have to see this thing. It's the articulation of this robotic hand is stunning, absolutely stunning. So come out and check that out. We have the link and the pictures in the show notes, as Ben alluded to. The next one comes from therobotreport.com. There's an outfit called Trexo, Trexo. So headline is Trexo's robotic brace helps children walk more than 1 million steps. This is a heartwarming story about helping children who have severe
Ralph, you undersold it.
Be able to walk again. It's just a wonderful story, and the technology is very, very clever. So be sure to check that one out.
Yeah, Ralph, you actually undersold. It's 100 million steps. It's
100 million. My bad.
Yeah, it's a lot of steps, and these kids are so tired, but the robots won't let them up. No,
that's it. It's a great illustration here for this, showing a little girl walking. It's just if you want to feel good, in this case, a cerebral palsy patient. Wow, this is
definitely
great
a feel good story.
But the next story here, next honorable mention, comes from newatlas.com. Headline, New Discovery Might Lead to Laptops Powered Through Typing. It's good old piezoelectrics principle here. The idea is, well, wait a minute, you're tippy-tapping on your keyboard here all day long. Why not introduce electric generation as you type to help feed your battery? Great idea. Simple, brilliant idea. So check that little story out. And our last honorable mention, headline from medicalexpress.com, another article from this outlet, bioprinting technique creates functional tissues 10 times faster. This is all about lab-grown tissues. Wow, and that's a technology Ben and I have been covering for years now, and this is another wonderful innovation. So check those stories out. They're all uplifting and will leave you feeling hopeful about the future.
Absolutely. No, they really will. And there's a lot to look forward to when it comes to technology in the home, when it comes to, reusability, recyclability, when it comes to medicine, when it comes to construction, when it comes to, ladies and gentlemen, there's a reason Ralph's title is so broad. It's because technology really has touched every part of our lives. And hey, not just in getting planes grounded by drones. No, in other fun, good ways. So, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have a great Christmas and you do something fun, and everyone out there have a great holiday. We'll be back with more every single Friday, and of course, we'll be back with more Computer America, computeramerica.com. Until then, have a good one. Bye, everyone.